Stewart, Minister of Labour, Social Security and National Insurance, Senator the Honourable Dr. Estes as Food. Other honourable ministers of government and members of Parliament, leaders within the trade union movement and constituents, Congress of Trade Unions, and staff of government, members of the Employers Confederation, and distributors of the public and private sectors, members of the Corps, of leaders in church and society, ladies and gentlemen of Congress, join me extending welcome to you today on behalf of the President General, the General Secretary, Executive, officers and members of our municipal community. Let us all seek God's presence and blessing and direct our hearts and minds in praise and prayer to Him. I will magnify you, O God, my King. I will praise thy name forever and ever. Every day I will give thanks unto thee and praise thy name forever and ever. Dear sisters and brothers in Christ, with the fellow workers, we assemble here conscious of the sovereignty of God and observe the 75th Delegates Conference of our municipal community. We duly offer to God our thanksgiving for the years, our past, and the way in which His grace has enabled us. We recognize every gift and ability has come in from Him. We thank Him for the work of the Labour movement, especially for our business union, in seeking the common good, to achieve what is right and fair and dignified for humans, and according to His will from the beginning. We thank God for the honor of labor. Remember that Jesus worked beside Joseph as a carpenter, thereby blessing and honoring all human labor. As we see God's presence in this annual Delegates Conference, this 75th historic conference, let us also be sensitive to our human failures, the lack of godly reverence for life, our uncharitableness, arrogance, abuse, and wastage of the provisions of creation. Let us ask forgiveness of God for these and all failures also. Lord, in your mercy, with establishing the name of petition, and going forward, may God be merciful to us and bless us, show us the way of His countenance and come to us. May your ways be known on earth, your saving heaven, among all nations. Let us look all of our needs and say as Christ as follows. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name, thy kingdom come. Thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive the trespasses. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, power, and glory, forever and ever. God of creation and Lord of the earth, we praise you for your wondrous providence and protection of our land through the years. We continue to seek and to trust in the welfare of our people and the increase of our prosperity. Guide and assist all those who are engaged in political sectors, who plan the course of our economy, and who seek out sources of investment in furtherance thereof. We pray for the government, especially in this period of economic and social challenge. Bless the Governor General, the Prime Minister, the Cabinet, and all who lead the halls of Parliament. We pray for the public and private sector, for all who plan, administer, and manage, and for staff at every level, not least those directly engaged in the economic and social development. Shield us against further shocks, internal and external, and make us all thankful, humble, and diligent in the protection and preservation of our gains. Now always giving thanks to you, we will enjoy the heavenly benediction through Jesus Christ, our Lord. Now we remembrance, think of those who have served this union faithfully and who are no longer with us. Let's remember those who passed in the last year, and we remember our excellent Frank in this 100th year. We are performed in special remembrance in this time of these persons. And we thank God that their laborers not in vain. May they continue to live on your memories and your hearts. Especially called my today, late comrade, great excellence Right? Ryder Phillips, Clarence Hockey, Calvin Grant, Wilbur Dirks, Hortense Willard, Claudine Betts, Wayne Skeets, Samuel Eastman, Elton Lord, Bert Winchester, Eileen Niall, Gladstone Rod Rappin, Sylvan Lovell, Maureen Hines, Gordon Scott, Norma Holden, Carol Strawn, Lloyd Cooley. Bless the Lord for their courage and devotion. Give it and trust them to your care in the hope and confidence of your God. Perfect life to shed upon them to the rest of us and rise.
Officers and members of the Executive Council, other distinguished and invited guests, members of the media, delegates to this annual Delegates Conference of the Delegates Workers Union. I am deeply honored as President of this great organization to welcome you to this 75th annual Delegates Conference of the Delegates Workers Union. I extend a special welcome to Prime Minister Lestrade, who readily accepted our invitation to join us at this historic conference, and I hope that his organization conference, which ended last Sunday, met his expectation. I am also very pleased to welcome the Honorable Mayor Amon, leader of the opposition, who is with us this morning. This year, 2016, one of the members for our nation Barbados and our organization, the Barbados Workers Union. Barbados celebrates its 50th year of independence on Wednesday, November 30th, and the BW marks its 75th anniversary on Tuesday, October 4th. And the BW commemorates the 100th anniversary of the birth of former General Secretary Sir Frank Walker, whose birthday falls on Friday, September 16th. For this reason, we shall all rejoice and give God thanks. And praises that we are alive and are able together to share in these milestones. We made that point because there are some parts of the globe where today there is warfare, bloodshed, and hunger. And where there are many other persons or people to complain, many other reasons are. While we have our own problems, we are blessed to live in a relatively peaceful country, and we should try to keep it so. God has been good to us. He has provided us with good leadership in the labor movement, which has provided us with 75 years of stability and workplace democracy, all spurred by the excellent work of the Barbados Workers Union. The excellent efforts of the BW is evident in the fact that this organization has produced national heroes, Right Excellence Frank Walker, Right Excellent Randy Adams, Right Excellent William Springer, Right Excellent and 6 Knights, Sir Brantley, Sir Hugh, Sir Frank, Sir MacDonald, Sir Kenny Moore Husbands, and Sir Roy Trotman. This is an accomplishment that has no comparison in Barbados. We in the Barbados Workers Union are particularly happy to have our present some of our very close friends from across the seas. Among them are our distinguished guest speaker, Brother Hassan Youssef, who is the President of the Canadian Labour Congress, President of the Trade Union Confederation of the Americas, and Brother Delegates of the Trade Union Confederation of Americas. We are really pleased to have Brother Youssef, who with us today for a number of reasons. He is a Caribbean man, and as President of the Canadian Labour Congress, he is strengthening the long friendship which the Barbados Workers Union has enjoyed with the Canadian Labour Congress for more than 50 years. We are also very happy that our sister Cindy Blanchard, second Vice President and leader of the Workers Union, has joined us this morning. Let's give them all a warm welcome. This conference is being held under the theme, 75 years, clear focus, renewed pride. And it is one of which we should commit ourselves to reflection and agree on new and positive ways by which we can address the challenges that are before us. We who are gathered here at this conference this morning are most likely wondering what the mood was like at the BW's first annual Delegates Conference held in 1942. Whatever the mood was like, we must salute those brave foot soldiers who stood up boldly for justice and saw in the same high regard that we lift up our founding fathers. The delegates to this conference who would be in the 150th annual Delegates Conference in the year 2021, God willing, will be lifting up those of us who are gathered in this auditorium this morning. But in order for the workers of the future to applaud and honor us, we must maintain the high standards that were set by our forefathers. You, the leaders, the delegates, and the shop stewards, I must tell you that the future of Barbados Workers Union is in your hands. And we all must make up our minds regarding what the future of this great organization which God has ordained us to lead will be like 75 years from now. So let's make this conference one that will set the standards for the next 75 years. As the prophet Joshua challenged the people of Israel, choose you this day whom you will serve. He has brought us this power with faith, and we can and will not turn back now. May God continue to bless you. Honorable Senator Dr. Vice to come and give remarks on the third conference.
Thank you very much. Good morning, Prime Minister of Barbados, the Right Honourable Frontal Jerome Stewart, QC MP, members of the Cabinet of Barbados, members of the Senate, including Senator Sir Roy Trotman, members of the House of Parliament, Ms. Linda Brooks, President General of the Barbados Workers Union, Ms. Tony Moore, General Secretary of the Barbados Workers Union, Brother Hassan Youssef, President of the Canadian Labour Congress and President of TUCA, Brother Victor Baez, General Secretary of TUCA, members of the Executive Council, delegates and other members of the Barbados Workers Union, the Very Reverend Dr. Frank Marshall, Chaplain of the Barbados Workers Union, senior government officials, distinguished invited guests, members of the media, ladies and gentlemen. This is a very good morning for all of us to be together here, and I wish you again a very pleasant morning. This year again, I am thankful for yet another opportunity to deliver remarks on the occasion of the annual Delegates Conference of the Barbados Workers Union. For the honor to be at this very special 75th conference, I do indeed thank the Executive Council. Steadfastness, resoluteness, determination, re-energizing, regeneration. These are words which come to mind when I reflect on the theme for this year's annual Delegates Conference, Clear Focus, Renewed Drive. This theme articulates a renewed vision and impetus for the Barbados Workers' Union, a powerhouse which has, over the span of its 75 years, been on the front line for the rights of workers. And I have a sneaky suspicion, though I haven't been here that long, that every day of those 75 years something was going on in the halls of the Barbados Workers' Union. Its legacy certainly does attest to that fact. The Ministry of Labour, Social Security and Human Resource Development, in its efforts to fulfill its own mission, values its partnership with the Barbados Workers' Union, since both our organizations seek to improve the quality of life of workers. Indeed, the government of Barbados views the Barbados Workers' Union as an important partner in our work to build a better and more resilient Barbados, one which is socially balanced, economically viable, environmentally sound, and of course characterized by good and honest governance. Together, we promote opportunities for decent and productive work in conditions of freedom of association, equity, security, and human dignity, to provide quality social and economic benefits for Barbadians. Although sometimes sitting on different sides of the bargaining table, our roles are not dissimilar. Ultimately, we all seek the welfare of workers, unionized or not, male or female, young or old, able-bodied or differently able, and indeed local or migrant workers. With respect to that latter category, as Minister responsible for labour and employment, I've recently had need to establish a technical committee to advise on and monitor migrant workers and their conditions in Barbados. As you are aware, there are a number of projects, including hotel construction projects on stream. We have, for example, the former Sandlords Castle site, which is managed by the Wyndham Hotel Group, the Sandals Barbados Resort expansion project, and the Hyatt-centric Carlisle Bay Hotel proposed for Lower Bay Street. And indeed, I am reliably informed that there are many others on the way. These will give skilled Barbadians greater opportunities to gain decent work, which will no doubt reduce our unemployment rate. However, we have noted that there's also a demand for foreign workers to be involved in these projects as well, alongside our local workers. And in an effort to ensure the protection of all workers on this island, especially in the construction of these projects in the first instance, it was considered prudent that a protocol should be developed to address issues such as wages and contractual payments, accommodation, holidays and days off, occupational safety and health, sanitation, social security, and other conditions. It is imperative that employers, developers, and all stakeholders, including the workers themselves, are aware of the legislative and other provisions which obtain in Barbados to govern employment and other relevant areas pertaining to health, sanitary conditions, town planning requirements, immigration, and so on. And these will all be set out in this protocol. As a signatory to the ILO and other conventions which address issues relating to foreign labor, we will ensure that decent working conditions are provided for all workers, both local and foreign. It will require greater monitoring, but by using the combined resources of the several relevant agencies, it can, and indeed it will be done. We do want the jobs, yes, but we will not compromise on the standards for our workers, as may have been allowed on other occasions. According to the most recent available statistics from the Barbados Statistical Service for the first quarter of 2016, the unemployment rate stood at 9.3%, a decrease from 10.2% in the last quarter of 2015. Indeed, in recent quarters, we have noticed a steady decline in unemployment. Youth unemployment, however, has continued to be roughly 3 times higher than the general figure. The issue of youth unemployment is therefore one that my ministry is addressing. And I know that the Barbados Workers Union is too, because in one way or another, this issue of youth unemployment will impact each and every one of us. The challenge of youth unemployment is global. July 15th is commemorated by the United Nations as World Youth Skills Day to sensitize the global community of the important link between skills development and the reduction of unemployment, particularly youth unemployment, and the alleviation of poverty. And research shows that over 73 million young people, it's a staggering figure, over 73 million young people are looking for work. The global share of youth not in education, employment, or training has reached more than 1 in 5. And at the same time, technological changes, innovation, and transition to greener economies are redefining jobs and changing the demand for skills. Countries across this region are asking the same questions in relation to youth employment. How do we prepare young people for a future where some of the best jobs have not even been invented yet? How can young people get up to speed with skills and information that is required by the labor market? How do we engage vulnerable youth who may otherwise have little hope of becoming productive citizens in our society? And what do we need to do to encourage employers to take a chance on young people? These are important questions which need to be answered, and we are searching for the answers. We have observed the need for new skills through the emergence of new sectors, such as renewable energy, oil and gas, and the cultural industries, and the expansion of traditional sectors, such as information technology and auto mechanics. We recognize that these new skills also require different types of tools and equipment, which will impact on the kinds of plant which we need to have in our training institutions. Attention also needs to be placed on the application of diverse teaching and training modalities to allow for the acquisition of competency-based certifications and the reduction of class times, while at the same time providing for more strategic, practical experience. These observations have led the government of Barbados to place skills development as a priority. And over the past 5 years, it has executed a number of projects and initiatives under the ambit of the Barbados Human Resource Development Strategy, as well as the Skills for the Future program. And now there's the Strengthening Human and Social Development program. And 2 major outcomes of these programs will be the provision of timely and accurate labor market information on the skills needed in industry, and the dedicated provision of training and employment services for the most vulnerable in our society. These initiatives will help us to provide skills for our young people, making them employable and able to support themselves, enjoy quality lives, and contribute to the country's economy. I must take this opportunity to express my thanks and the thanks of my ministry to the Barbados Workers Union for its advice in the execution of these many projects, and also in the continual review of our labor legislation. Now, we all know in here that the legislative process is a lengthy one, and we do value the consultative efforts of our social partners who have been with us every step of the way. I am pleased then in that regard to inform you that the new holidays with pay bill and the minimum wage bill will be debated in Parliament shortly, having been approved by Cabinet. The minimum wage bill will make way for the establishment of a minimum wage board, which will advise on a minimum wage, be it nationally or for specific groups. They will consider the cost of living and other important factors in arriving at their decision. The last increase you may all recall in the minimum wage was for shop assistants in 2011. So I know that they are awaiting another increase in that minimum wage, and the new minimum wage board will be considering that. And at long last, we expect soon to be able to get the Attorney General's certificates on the employment sexual harassment legislation and the anti-discrimination in the workplace legislation, which is the final step then before Parliament. And then, ladies and gentlemen, our attention will be turned to the Trade Union Act and the amendments thereto. We have been able to do a lot of work in the ministry on legislation, policy, employment and training, and it would not have been possible without the support of the Barbados Workers Union. Again, I want to thank them. There are many who believe that the Barbados Workers Union and others in labor make my work more difficult, but I must confess that the Barbados Workers Union has indeed been a partner and aided us in getting our work done. So as you celebrate your 75th anniversary, and this nation celebrates its 50th anniversary of independence, we all acknowledge that our progress is the result of the hard work and dedication of generations of Barbadians in all spheres of activity. And today in particular, we salute the men and women who gave untiringly to this nation by devout service to and through the Barbados Workers Union. Preparations are underway for September 18th, when the Government of Barbados, through the 50th Anniversary Independence Coordinating Committee and the Secretariat, will join you in commemorating the 100th anniversary of the birthday of the Right Excellent Sir Frank Walcott and celebrating other legends of labor. Among them, we will be celebrating the lives of the Right Excellent Clement Payne, the Right Excellent Charles Duncan O'Neill, the Right Excellent Sir Hugh Springer, and the Right Excellent Sir Bradley Adams, and I believe there are others in that list. Entitled Labour Marches On, the event will be a march and dramatic production beginning at the Frank Walcott Building and then going through town and ending at Queen's Park. That is September 18th, so as they say today, save the date, September 18th. Please join us as we put the spotlight on the role of labor in our success as a nation. And wearing my hat as the Deputy Chair of the Coordinating Committee for our independence activities, I invite all of you to be a part of the several activities that have been planned within the next 95 days to celebrate our 50th birthday as a nation. All that being said, I am this morning indeed truly honored to now declare open the 75th Annual Delegates Conference of the Barbados Workers Union.
I'll have some comments on your remarks a little later, but at this point in time, I just want to introduce some of our brothers and sisters who will be bringing fraternal greetings to us. You will recognize from your program that we have listed two, and you may be wondering on the 75th anniversary of the BWU, can we only muster two fraternal greetings? But we have had an overwhelming response from brothers and sisters within Barbados, throughout the region, and internationally. And so we have collated the many greetings received in our special 75th anniversary edition of the Unionists. However, our sister, Cindy Blanchard from the Antigua and Barbados Workers Union, I said Barbados? Yes. Barbuda Workers Union. She's here with us this morning to bring greetings on behalf of that union. Her General Secretary is a brother, very close brother of mine, and although he is unable to make it this morning, he thought it fit that he could not just send greetings in the Unionists, but that they had to be a part of this morning's proceedings. And we have as well our brother Victor Baez. For those of you who attended our conference last year, you would remember Brother Baez. He wasn't here specifically to attend the Barbados Workers Union's conference. He was here on a mission of the International Trade Union Confederation that was examining the application of another union into that very prestigious body, of which he is the Deputy General Secretary, and I happen to be the Vice President. But when he heard this morning that the Barbados Workers Union, that this year the Barbados Workers Union will be celebrating its 75th, he indicated to me, well, Tony, I must be back. I'll plan to be there. And so when we were able to confirm arrangements and send the information to him, within the next day he sent us back his itinerary and a request to book his accommodation. So we're very, very glad to have Brother Bias here with us this morning as the General Secretary of the Trade Union Confederation of the Americas, which is an arm of the international body, the International Trade Union Confederation. So we invite him first and foremost to come and bring us greetings. This will be followed by Sister Blanchard, and before you come, Victor, immediately after that we would want to go into our message from the Director General. The Director General is and has been and continues to be a very important follower of our work here in the Barbados Workers Union. He was privileged to serve with Sir Roy and Sir Frank at the level of the International Confederation of Free Trade Unions, which later became the ITUC. And he wanted to be here with us this year as well, but previous commitments prevented him from making this date, and it was with significant regret that he had to indicate that to us, but he has promised us that he will be with us very, very soon. He will join us here for another occasion. He thinks that he owes it to the BWU and he owes it to Sir Roy in particular. So we will be seeing his video message that he sent specifically for this occasion. So Victor, then Sister Blanchard, and then the Director General.
Thank you, Mr. Prime Minister, Madam Minister of Labor, Sister President Linda, Tony, Hassan, brothers and sisters at the head table, brothers and sisters, ladies and gentlemen. It's a pleasure to be here again, and a pleasure and an honor. And first of all, I have to congratulate the BWU for 75 years of struggle and coherence. I will explain to you later, but when I read something, I thought about Schopenhauer, who said once that a person who reads a lot of books is a wise person, but that a person who reads in the book of the world is a genius. So when I read this statement, what's the vision statement for the BWU? To be an excellent trade union provider of labor, market, services in Barbados and the wider Caribbean, and to improve the quality of life of all Barbadians through participatory representation. Well, it's natural that the BWU cares about the destiny of Barbadians. Natural, but the BWU goes beyond, because the BWU knows that this is a strong union, but will never be strong enough if the unions of all the Caribbean are not strong enough. So, therefore, I remember Schopenhauer and I said, well, my brothers and sisters from Barbados are reading in the book of the world and are reading in the book of the Caribbean. And listen, you know very well what I said last year here, that you are very well represented. You have been, for a long time, very well represented by Leader Johnson in the international arena. You should be very proud, and I know you are proud of his representation, and you should also be very proud of Tony Moore representing you right now in the ILO. And now, Tony Moore is the deputy president, together with Hassan Yusuf, our president. She is the deputy president of the Trade Union Confederation of the Americas, representing 60 million people from Canada to the Pacific. That's not for free. Of course, you may think we are an island. Yes, you are an island, but you are not isolated. You are present in the world, and the quality and strength of the PWU is being a tool in order to strengthen all the unions. Because in the Americas, I come from Guatemala, where we still have slavery in the coffee plantations. I also come right now, I departed from Sao Paulo 2 weeks ago. I'm coming from Colombia, where for the first time in more than 50 years we have an opportunity of peace, because the guerrilla and the government has signed an agreement of peace. And we, as labor movement, we always stand for peace. We say yes to the peace in Colombia, yes to the peace everywhere. But listen, there are some problems in the world. You're seeing that people say, those wise people, those geniuses, those who read in the book of the world, are saying now that the high-intensity democracy is not any more useful for capitalism. Now, capitalism wants very low-intensity democracy. And we, as labor movement everywhere, and here also in Barbados, we should stand always for more and deeper democracy. Not only the right to vote, not only the right to speak, but also for the right for a better living, for social rights, for economic rights, for a environment for everybody, for all, not just for those who can. Sustainable development. We, Hassan, Tony, myself, and other members of the Secretariat in the TUCA, we are promoting sustainable development through the Americas, in the world too. We talk about a democratic pillar. There cannot be a sustainable world, a sustainable country without democracy. But democracy in all sense, in all, not just political democracy, not just representative democracy. We've got to be participatory democracy. Yeah. And there is also a social pillar, an economic pillar, and an environmental pillar to have, with all those four pillars, sustainable democracy. And we should fight for sustainability everywhere in the world. Everywhere. Not just in one country. Because in one country cannot be sustainable if the whole world is not sustainable. Therefore, I salute you and happy 75th anniversary. Thank you.
Mr. Prime Minister, I acknowledge all protocol already established. Good morning, brothers and sisters. Good morning. Many of us present here today have had the agony at some point in time, I'm sure recently, to have suffered through taking either a child, a grandchild, a godchild, somebody young, to watch and listen to one of Disney's characters repeat the phrase to those who she would have interacted to in the seat that she suffers from short-term memories. Today, that's not the case here at Barbados Workers. Barbados Workers Union have declared at age 75 that we have a clear focus and a renewed drive. That famous character in Disney is Dorothy, and she was in Finding Nemo and Finding Dorothy, two of the many thousands of movies that Walt Disney produced and created over the many years. But did we know that on the 29th of May, 1940, 334 employees from Disney Animation walked out on a strike, and the 29th of May, 2006 marked 75 years that that event occurred. Yet, not a peep was heard, and Disney is one establishment that acknowledges and celebrates milestones and events often. Today, that is not the case with the Barbados Workers Union. Barbados Workers Union is celebrating loudly, proudly, all its established and accomplished milestones. And as a result, the executive and members of the Antigua and Barbuda Workers Union join with the many unions locally, regionally, and internationally to congratulate and celebrate with Barbados Workers Union 75 years of brilliant accomplishments over years of struggle and hardship to achieve better working conditions and many other established guidelines and assistance for the workers class of Barbados. We too are advancing in age. The Antigua and Barbuda's Workers Union are about to host our 50th Delegates Conference on the 18th of September and our 50th anniversary on the 31st of May 2017. We are truly grateful for all the assistance extended to us over the years by our brothers and sisters within the Barbados Workers Union. And hence, we are here today physically to say thank you and congratulations to the Barbados Workers Union and extend success to the delegates here with us today. As we honor the sacrifice of the brave men and women who have led the fights over the years to improve working place conditions and the many other registered accomplishments, we must recognize and keep in mind that there are still plenty of work to be done, and that improving the industry's welfare is a shared responsibility passed on from generation to generation. At this point, I'll say, long live the Barbados Workers Union, congratulations, and
best wishes on the 75th anniversary.
Dear friends, on my own behalf and on behalf of the International Labour Organization, I want to extend heartiest congratulations to the Barbados Workers' Union as you celebrate your 75th anniversary. 75 years of tireless advocacy on behalf of the working people of Barbados. I'm only sorry that I cannot be there in person, as I would very much have liked to be. And let me assure you, it's not this year's 2020 Cricket World Cup defeat of my country by the West Indies that has prevented me, but rather unavoidable prior commitments. This year also marks the 100th anniversary of the birth of a Barbados national hero, Sir Frank Walcott, former General Secretary of the BWU, as well as the 50th anniversary of Barbados's independence. Over the years from 1969 to 2011, the ILO has benefited from the BWU's long-standing support and governing body presence. One milestone was the election of Sir Frank to the ILO's governing body, where he served until 1991. And as a very young trade unionist, I had the privilege of watching Sir Frank at work and, I hope, learning something from him. Many will remember, as I do, the stance he took, for example, in the ILO's anti-apartheid committees of that era, as well as his remarkable chairing of the World Employment Conference in 1976, which stands as a milestone in ILO history. And that relationship, a very special one, between the ILO and the BWU continued with Sir Roy Trotman's election to the governing body in that year of 1991. And he, of course, became the chair of the workers' group and the workers' vice chair of the governing body in 2002, when I had the privilege of working with him very closely. Sir Roy is remembered here for his leadership in the negotiations of the worst forms of child labour convention. That's Convention 182, dated from 1999, today the most ratified of all ILO conventions. And his subsequent role in promoting the principles of this critically important convention, and his relentless pursuit of consensus and solutions in difficult negotiations without ever abandoning the interests of his constituency, remains a remarkable memory. And if I'm allowed still to step out of my ILO shoes, I want to add that my fondest memories of Sir Roy's contribution are to do with his wonderful work as president and leader of the ICFTU. And most particularly, Sir Roy, the fact that it was you who brought down the gavel on the historic decision just 10 years ago now for the creation of the ITUC in Vienna, Austria in 2006. Dear colleagues, your trade union stalwarts were also powerful advocates for social dialogue and for decent work at the national and the regional levels. And let me address to you all profound thanks for the important, I would say critically important contributions that the BWU has made to the International Labour Organization on behalf of the workers of Barbados and the Caribbean, and indeed the whole region of the Americas over decades. And dear friends, I want also to congratulate Tony Moore, the BWU's General Secretary, on her leadership. Tony, you stand on the shoulders of the giants who preceded you, and I was witness also to your election to the post of Deputy President of the Trade Union Confederation of the Americas at its third Congress held in Sao Paulo in April of this year. It was a great moment. And the BWU also holds titular positions on the Tucker's Women's Committee and on the Youth Committee. And I'm certain that under Tony's leadership, Tucker-affiliated Caribbean trade unions will be a stronger force than ever in Tucker, amplifying the voice of Caribbean workers, their particular needs, and reinforcing the solidarity that must be the strength of workers in the face of contemporary challenges. Colleagues, your conference has set itself the important task of strategically outlining how the BWU may deliver on a future of work that aligns to the United Nations Agenda for Sustainable Development, the 2030 Agenda. The ILO and its tripartite constituents have been heavily engaged in the development of that 2030 Agenda, with a great result that decent work lies at its centre. As you know, social dialogue is one of the pillars of decent work, and your contribution to realising the 2030 Agenda will therefore also help to advance that cause of social dialogue. Your influence can also be brought to bear in another major global initiative, the 4th Global Conference on Child Labour that will be held in Buenos Aires in November of next year. The BWU has already done important work in this area, and I'm certain that you will have a great deal to offer in the preparations for that conference. Now, your conference meets under the theme, Clear Focus, Renewed Drive. The BWU is called upon to assess whether workers are challenged enough to confront what, in many respects, is a resurgence of conditions that gave rise to its formation back in 1941. The future of work holds many promises, but there are also deep challenges. Changing employment relationships, the disappearance of certain categories of job, the challenge of organisation, the impact of climate change on jobs and livelihoods, to cite but a few. And as you may know, the ILO itself is preparing for its 2nd century of work by looking ahead to the world of work of the future and the implications of it for the ILO's social justice mandate. I want to invite you to join us in this reflection on the future of work and preparation for action that must follow. So friends, I wish you a very fruitful and a very rich debate, and I thank you warmly for this opportunity to greet you all. Good luck.
I say that if you're following the program, you would have seen that the next item is a musical rendition by our Queen, Calypso Queen. But due to circumstances beyond our control, she has not arrived. So I will now invite Doreen Conrad, Doreen Dean, to introduce the speaker.
Protocol having been established, good morning to all. It is my distinct honor to introduce the featured speaker this morning, Brother Hassan Yusuf. Brother Yusuf brings a record of remarkable achievements to his new role as President of the Canadian Labour Congress. Elected on May 2014 as the first person of color to lead the country's labor movement, Brother Yusuf's winning campaign was built on a mandate for change that included increased activism in response to the challenges facing unions. Brother Yusuf is committed within the Canadian Labour Congress to working together with government and business for justice and fairness in the workplace and in the society, as well as good and decent jobs, the protection of health care, security of pensions, and the creation and safeguarding of child care programs. This sounds very much like the life's work set for us by our own Executive Council. Brother Yusuf is certainly no stranger to hard and productive work. On emigrating from his native homeland, Guyana, at the age of 16, he trained to be a heavy truck mechanic. While working on the plant floor of an automotive parts manufacturer, he joined the labor movement through membership in the Canadian Auto Workers. Brother Yusuf quickly became a union activist when fellow workers elected him plant chair after he attended just 3 union meetings. Legendary Canadian Auto Workers leader Bob White soon noticed the work of Mr. Yusuf and recruited him to become a senior staff member at the Canadian Auto Workers, now renamed Unifor. He served as a staff representative in organizing and service departments before being appointed as director of the Human Rights Department. In 1999, Brother Yusuf was elected Executive Vice President of the Canadian Labour Congress. This uniform group represents Canada's largest unions and trade organizations, totaling more than 3.3 million members. He was then elected Secretary-Treasurer in 2002 and remained in that position until 2014 when he assumed the position of President. Not only is Brother Yusuf a high-profile labor leader in Canada, he is also respected internationally. He was elected President of the Trade Union Confederation of the Americas, TUCA, in 2012 for a 4-year term, heading an international labor group representing more than 50 million workers in 29 countries. His prior international experience includes being an observer for the historic first democratic South African elections in 1994 that elected Nelson Mandela as president. Brother Yusuf's presence with us this morning is significant too, because it exemplifies continuity in partnership and solidarity. The relationship between the Barbados Workers' Union and the Canadian Labour Congress stretches back as early as the 1960s. This relationship was fostered at the meeting of the International Labour Organization, where our own Sir Frank Walcott developed close working relationships with Brother Joe Morris. Both gentlemen served as chairmen of the various committees of the International Labour Conferences. Additionally, the Canadian Labour Congress organized courses for the members of the Barbados Workers' Union as early as 1966, with training in Ottawa, Canada, and continued locally by funding our first computer training programs. Brother Hassan Yusuf, a man of stature, who recognizes that change, positive change, oftentimes is not automatic nor achieved without effort, but requires a clear and focused vision. a mantra the Barbados Workers Union identifies with. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Brother Hassan Yusuf.
Good morning, Sisters and Brothers. First, let me start this with an honor this to be at your 75th, of course, anniversary and your important conference that you will have over this weekend and subsequent weekend. Let me start by thanking, of course, Linda, your president, and Tony, and your executive and leadership, of course, for extending an invitation for me to join you here this morning. I want also to acknowledge your Prime Minister, your Minister of Labour, and other, of course, dignitaries and elected members of your Parliament and your democratic system in your country. It was noted earlier, I was born in Guyana, and it's good to come back to the Caribbean, but I just wish you would invite me in the midst of the Canadian winter to come back to Barbados. It's nice and warm here, but it would be much more appreciated in the middle of a Canadian winter. But it is indeed an honor to be here to share, of course, my congratulatory, of course, remarks to your 75th year as an organization. I know you know this, but they need to be said. It may be your 75th anniversary as a union, about building, of course, and representing workers in this country, but equally so, Barbados would not be the same country without the BW today. Because of your concerns and your activism and your political engagement has helped also shape this country and made this country a better country. It is said, of course, within a very short time you'll be celebrating the 50th anniversary of your independence. Remember one important thing, your union was around long before the independence of Barbados. And by the way, that independence would never have happened without the workers advocating for your sovereignty as a country. So it's a good opportunity, of course, for us to be here to recognize that, because all of us as trade unions throughout our history have always recognized the work we do on behalf of our members. It's not simple about them, because what we desire for ourselves, we desire for all within our society and our respective country that we work in. It's also, I think, it's important to acknowledge the document that has been prepared to your Congress, clear vision and a renewed drive, because it acknowledges two things, that you've had a rich past and a very determined history. But at the same time, you have to now look to the future, because the world in which we live in is changing at a rapid pace. I think you know that from the work you're doing. I also believe to present both an opportunity, but we also have to acknowledge the challenges. As a trade unionist in my own country, Canada, I'm never one of those people who wake up in the morning and think I can do something to change the world. Because if you're going to simply whine about the things you don't like, then there's other things to do. The job that we have to do, of course, is to recognize we still can improve the lives of our members and improve the lives of our country. But the challenges we are facing is an incredible one. You know, globalization today means that there is no borders in the world. Information between nations travel speed of lightning. And more importantly, of course, the challenges that we all face is how do we continue to build our organization? How do we continue to represent our members? It's been noted that the wealth that we are creating today, there's never been more wealth in the world. But the question we continue to ask, how come there's so much poor people in the world? How come we can't seem to redistribute that wealth in a different way to ensure the people who helped create that wealth can share in that wealth? Today, as I speak to you, there's never been more freedom for a country to move their products from one place to the other. While as workers' organization, we've never been against trade, But we always said fundamentally, trade has to, of course, lift the boats of all people, not just a small percentage of those who are privileged within the world economy. But as a union, we have an important role to play in this. We can't turn back the clock. It's not available to us. Fundamentally, we have to recognize that while there are many aspects of globalization we don't like, there's many positive aspects about it that we need to recognize. The flow of information. Not so long ago, if there was a problem in the world with workers, we would have to send you a telegram if you had the machine to receive it, or maybe write you a letter. Today you get an instant message on your smartphone within a second. That's important because you can no longer isolate it from what's happening in the world. The question for us, how are we able to take that information to build our own organization going forward? At the same time, of course, the rights of workers. Well, we know much, and we've heard about it, Ryder talk about all the improvements that the ILO been able to make. The conventions of the ILO aren't simply documents about the kindness and the generosity of the global community. Those documents contain words about the protection of workers and how we can truly build a collaborative ways, of course, to improve the life of working people. Far too often, ILO conventions are simply documents that sit on a shelf somewhere, gathering dust, rather than being used, of course, to improve the lives of working people. Today, as I speak to you, sisters and brothers, because you live on an island, climate change is the biggest challenge we've seen in the century since the human race has been evolved. It might consume all of us. It will not consume the planet. The planet will still be here. If we are going to reverse the effects of climate change, time is of the essence. If the world climate should increase by 2 degrees, it would have a devastating and a catastrophic impact on the world population. 60 million people in the world today are refugees. 60 million. They've been displaced, some by war, some by poverty, economic devastation, droughts, and I could go on the list. 60 million people. They're looking for a home, for a place they can raise their families. They can have a decent job, send their kids to school. Most recently, my country, of course, took the rightful responsibility to take in some 25,000 Syrian refugees. It was the right thing to do. The Germans took in 1 million refugees from Syria. And I said to my Prime Minister then, if Germany can take in 1 million, Canada can do far more than taking in 25,000. We are a large country, we can do better. Because every one of those Syrian refugees that's come to my country to date are going to make a positive contribution to build that country, to strengthen my country. But at the same time, for those families that be given an opportunity to build a new life, so their kids can go to school, it's the right thing for us to do. We also have to ensure the prejudice sometimes that we see on television and reading the newspaper doesn't change our reality with people. Because working people are no different, regardless of where they come from. The values that they share is the same as what you and I share here today. Same time, sisters and brothers, trade, of course, is an important part of the development of our country. I come from a country where the trading part, 80% of our trade goes to the United States. It's critical for our development and our growth as a country, but we recognize fundamentally free trade in the United States and North America is important, but it also has to include workers' rights. And of course, while governments too often do not talk about the positive impact of trade in terms of commerce, what they forget to talk about, how are they going to protect workers and safeguard their rights within their respective country. If you're going to come to trade in our country, you need to respect the fact that we have laws, and those laws must be observed. As you reflect on the 75 years of your history as an organization, you will be looking at many things, the structure of your union. 75 years ago when the pioneers created this union, at that time, many of the structures that they put in place made a lot of sense for that particular moment. But it's 75 years later, you have to ask yourself the difficult question, but the challenging question. Does that structure work for us today? And if it doesn't work, don't spend any time debating. Try to figure out how you can make it different, because you're not unique to this problem. We're also going in the same thing in my organization, the Canadian Labour Congress. We have 3.5 million workers we represent. And every year we continue to examine the structure. Why? It's a choice and a responsibility. The staff that does the work on behalf of the organization, is it going to be the same or is it going to be different? These are not questions we get to ignore. And as leaders, you know you don't have the luxury of waiting. Because if you're going to have another 75 years of history, these things are going to have to be sorted out. How do we build our organization? How do we make our organization more centered? The resources you have to run your organization. Is it going to meet the needs for the challenges you face and grow this organization? If not, then you have to figure out, well, how do we then figure out we're going to get new resources to build our organization and leadership. You know, I come from a union, from an organization which I was elected, and I said there was one thing I was not elected to do is to watch dust gather under my feet. And in order to do that job very effectively, I have to disrupt it a little bit. Because without tension, there would be no change. And the reality is, as leaders, I don't get the tough responsibility. It's my job to deal with it. But I know one thing. If I'm doing the right thing, the members will keep re-electing me. They will keep re-electing me. But more importantly, if you're not dealing with the challenge the organization is faced with, then you're not doing your duty. What is the role of leadership? You know, the role of the shop steward, who is the front line in our organizations, I always say, without them, there is no union. They're the face of the union every single day in the workplace. They're who the members interact, their skills, their responsibility, their ability to communicate and to engage. I used to be a shop steward. Every day I got shit from somebody. For some reason, it didn't matter what it was, but that is the job of a shop steward. When people are frustrated, they want to go to somebody to talk to. No, the Reverend is here this morning, so I wouldn't use language that you would be offended by. But we all know the language of the membership when they're very upset. But without good, competent shop steward to carry on that duty, we cannot build our organization. With all the shop stewards that are here, I can't begin to tell you from the bottom of my heart how much I honor you and respect you for the work you do every single day to build this. Because without you, we cannot grow. But I want to say to you at the same time, my friends, who are in your position, yes, your job is not just to talk to the members, it's to listen to them. Because it's fundamental that we hear what they have to say. Because they truly want us to represent them. And the union is going to continue to rely on more and more. These brothers and sisters, by the way, they're not on the union payroll. They do it voluntarily because they care. We always have to put them in front of our organization, considerate of their concerns and their opinion. Similarly, sisters and brothers, the responsibility, of course, in campaigns, without good shop steward, we cannot win. Because the strength of this union is their ability to communicate to the members. And I know you've got many campaigns in your organization, whether it's to amend the legislation in Parliament and to make some positive change. You know, some people complain about the fact that members don't come to meeting anymore. And that's true. In every organization around the world, this is exactly the challenge. But you know, the lives of the members have changed significantly. They drive much longer distance to go to work. Today our workforce have more women in it than they used to do in the past. Their responsibility has changed. But simply because people do not come to a union meeting, it does not mean you're not interested in the union. The question How do we get the information to the members? How do we continue to talk to them about things that are important to build a union as we all struggle with this reality? Next, I'd like to talk about, of course, the role of women. When my organization was founded from almost over 60 years ago, women participation, I looked at the founding convention and there was a picture on the wall we still have in the CLC building. It's almost 99% men, those there. I'm not sure whether women didn't want to be involved or they weren't allowed to be involved, but I can tell you this. Today in the Canadian economy, women make over 50% of the workforce today. The interests of women, the issues of women has to be paramount in the union agenda. If it's not, the question they're going to ask us, well, who do you represent? Whose interests do you represent? If you want me to be involved in your organization, then I need to be at the forefront of what you do. And this is a new reality for our organization. As we continue, 2 of our officers in the Canadian Labour Congress are women. And we are making a determination to continue to ensure we have gender balance in our leadership structure. Because it's critical. It's one thing to ask them to join and to pay the union dues, but we also have to ask them to serve in the respective responsibility of their organization. So I speak to you today and I'm reflecting on my own reality. You notice there's some gray hair. And I'm noticing in the audience there's a lot of gray hairs. I say this, we are the generations of the past. Like it or not, there's a new generation, they're younger people. I got a lot of young staff in my organization. As a matter of fact, almost all the staff that I've hired in the last 2.5 years are below 30 years of age. So everybody keep asking me this question, saying, why do you keep hiring all these young people? You know, they don't have the experience. I said, yeah, maybe true. When I joined, I was only 18 years of age. I didn't have any bloody experience either. But you know what these young people bring? They bring a certain kind of energy I've never seen in the organization. They bring a certain kind of passion that I've never seen in the organization. And a determination to the campaigns and the work that we do I've never seen in the organization. Now, I'm not so young anymore. But I said to them, for every hour they work, I will work 2 hours. Because the reality is, I need to create that space for this young people in my organization. Because they are the future. They are what's going to keep this organization going for the next 75 years. I want to say to all of you in a very respectful way in this audience. Young people are going to say and do things you're not going to like. Now many of you got kids, right? You kind of know what I'm talking about. So in the union, get over it. Yeah, they might challenge you and tell you that you're full of shit, you know what you're talking about. And you know what? It may be true. Don't spend any time. The fact that they're coming and they're giving you advice and they bring their energy, we need to make sure we can keep them, don't lose them. Because if they'll remain in our organization, then we're not going to grow. Young people want to feel that they've got a contribution to make. And as we go through this struggle in the CLC, I'm telling you my own story. I know you need to struggle with this through yourself. And it's not easy. I can tell you without a doubt, we're having a youth conference. We came up with this little slogan. And I'm looking at it and I said, I don't know what that thing represents. And I'm trying to get them to explain to me, I still don't understand it, but you know what? It's not the end of the world. It's their slogan, it's fine with me. They're going to have their conference, and I'm going to go speak with them, and I'm going to spend the entire period of their conference going to happen. You know why I do that? Because I want to immerse myself. What are they thinking? How do they see the world? How do they think we're going to grow the organization? What do we need to do differently? And I know all the things I'm going to hear. I may not necessarily agree or even know for that matter, but I know one thing. Those young people that will come to that conference are absolutely determined that the Canadian labor movement need to be stronger, need to be bigger, need to be bolder, and more importantly, need to survive for the next 60 years of its history. The last 2 things I want to touch with you, sisters and brothers, of course, is building union power. You see, people will say this in a different way, oh, we don't want to talk about union power, we don't want to take over the world. I know one thing, I want to influence it. And without union power, it's hard to influence government. Now, our Prime Minister is here, the Minister is here. Well, listen, let's have no understanding about a relationship. If we're not strong, he's not going to listen to us. So it's critical for us to realize that if we want to build union power, we need to recognize that we need to build an organization, we have to grow. And that means we have to improve our density. This is a challenge, we're going through this. But at the same time, there's a recognition that we don't live in an equal world. Workers' voice and the voices of the capital is not the same. It's not the same. The only way we're going to get an equal voice is when we have more members and the strength. And when we speak, we can mobilize because we have solidarity and strength within our organization. We've all said within the Canadian Labour family is what we practice, and the BW has a rich tradition of this. We're not the typical union, just bargain for members to get them a collective agreement and give better wages and working conditions. We practice social unionism because we care about our neighbors, we care about our friends who doesn't belong to our organization. Because the laws in this country will not be improved without the trade union movement. Every time you improve the laws, you improve the lives for all Barbadians, not just for those who belong in the labor movement. And without us, there would not be better laws. And we need to remind society that the trade union movement is not a selfish movement. I want to give you an example. We've been doing this wonderful experiment in Canada about what we call a fairness project. So we did a survey across the country to ask Canadians what did they think of us. And this is the God's truth. Here was the response. They said, you guys go and strike all the time. And you're always in protest. That's the two things they know. So here's the fact. 99% of all the collective agreements negotiated in Canada is settled without a strike. But Canadians know nothing about the 99%. The only thing they know about is the 1%. Because that's what the media writes about. I'm not saying to criticize my media friends that are here today, but there needs to be a bit of a balance. We have one of the largest organizations called Canada called the United Way. It raised funds to help with the challenges in which governments are not meeting. Every year, we, the trade union movement, through our membership, contribute some $350 million voluntarily to the United Way campaign. And yet, you'll never see an article in the country telling Canadians that the labor movement and its members voluntarily give $350 million. You know why we do it? Because we know it's our neighbors who have a problem, are going to need some support. We do it because we recognize fundamentally we have union wages, we can afford to do it. But we also know we have a responsibility to help those who are less fortunate. Because someday we might be exactly where they're at right now. We've got to find a better way to tell our stories. Because too often, for all the good work this union does, the public does not know about it. And we got to find a way, how do we do that? We're struggling with this in Canada, and it's important. So what about the world of communications? 75 years and lots of change. How do we communicate? And this is an experiment that's going on. We know one thing, that our members want to hear from us. They truly want us to talk to them, wants us to be engaged. And everybody's going through these challenges. How can we better communicate to the members? If they don't come to meetings, how do we take the meeting to them? So I want to share something with you, and it may embarrass you, but also may remind you. Now, you remember not so long ago this thing didn't exist, right? It's not that long ago. Think about it. Now, every one of you, if you don't have one of this, you're living in the past. So there's a few you refuse to because you don't want anybody to call you. But trust me, you don't have the luxury. If you're thinking that way, trust me, it won't be long before But even though every one of us have one of these devices, very few have given the unions our information so they can send us a message in one of these. And I always ask people, well, why is that? Why doesn't members give us their email address so we can communicate? I don't know what the answer is, but I think the large part of it, because they think we're going to send them a lot of crap all the time. It's a relationship we have to build, because it's about trust. If they give us their information, we have to use it with care. And if they don't come to the meeting, you might send them a little paragraph just to tell them about 2 things you talked about at the meeting. But ultimately, sisters and brothers, this device has to work for us. It has to work to strengthen our communications in our organization. We don't have the luxury of getting people to come like this today and sit and listen. And if they're not going to come and sit and listen, we have to figure out a way how we talk and communicate to them. So let me come to the final point I want to make here today. International solidarity. Leroy is right. Your leadership is right. We have had a rich history, the CLC and the BW. Like it or not, I need to renew that relationship with your organization. As a new president, I pledge to do that. This is fundamental. Because with the little bit we can do with you, we can learn lots. Yes, we can learn lots from you. As we can learn, of course, ways how we can better appreciate our different realities. But more importantly, you have an important role to play. The BWU, I would say, in the Caribbean, is the powerhouse of an organization. And most recently, we recruited my friend, your General Secretary, Tony Moore, to become, of course, the Vice President of QUCA. It was a conscious decision on our part, because we recognize the important role you play in the Caribbean, and how you can, of course, strengthen our organization by her being on our executive. Equally so, when Leroy was, of course, in his capacity, ITUC and subsequent ICFTU, he played an important role in building relationship. And that international solidarity matters, sisters and brothers. You know, somebody said earlier today, the role that BW, former leadership, played, and how we were able to get rid of the apartheid regime. South Africans played an important role in that struggle. But the most important thing was the international solidarity to end apartheid. I remember as a young activist, boycotting South African products. I remember in 1991, I went to visit South Africa on a fact-finding mission. And to realize, even though Mandela had been released from prison, we had to stay the course until democracy was finally established back in that country. Today, we need international solidarity more than ever, because the reality in the world in which we live in, we need to strengthen our bonds and remain strong with each other. Sisters and brothers, I pledge to you I'll do my part to strengthen my relationship with the BW, and equally so, my friend, your General Secretary, will be called upon to serve more often. We'll take her away for once in a while, because we need her on the international stage equally to do the work that we're doing. I want to conclude to say to all of you, I know you're going to have a wonderful conference and a celebration. And by the way, this is a celebration, just in case some of you are not sure. This is 75 years of enhancing the lives of working people. It is 75 years of strengthening the democracy of Barbados, so you can have a more democratic, equal, and a just society. And as we strive to make this world a more peaceful, a more just, and more equal society, BW, part of that 75 years, have made this world a better place, has made this country a better place, and has made the lives of working people a better place. Thank you so much.
Wow is all I can say. Word. so very much, Brother Hassan. Prime Minister of Barbados, the Honorable Frendel Stewart. Minister of Labor, Dr. the Honorable Esther Blair Suku, and other members of Cabinet. Leader of the Opposition, the Honorable Mia Moore Motley, and other members of Parliament. Distinguished members of the head table, recognize distinguished ambassadors among us, and justices, all our specially invited guests, members of the clergy, members of our fraternity. I want to take this opportunity to identify, especially this morning, the Chief Labor Officer, Mr. Vincent Burnett, Brother Vincent Burnett, who suddenly is not going to stand, but he is going to stand, because this is a bittersweet occasion for me and welcoming him this morning, because this is the last conference that he'll be here as CLO, not the last conference that he'll be here sure, but he proceeds on pre-retirement leave next week. Friday is his last. Bittersweet not only because he wouldn't be serving anymore as CLO, but it means that on the heels of this conference, I have a very busy week because I have a packed week of meetings with the CLO as we seek to conclude on some issues. So I'm sure that our conference, which I'm sure will run fairly late this evening, will be very much indicative of the kind of evenings that I shall be expecting during the next few days. So my husband has my excuse. That was my way of getting my visa. Thank you. This morning I am thrilled to be bringing these remarks to this annual Delegates Conference in the year that marks our Platinum Jubilee, our 75th anniversary. The BWU is particularly thrilled that this milestone to be observed during a year when all Barbadians have occasion to celebrate our sovereign independence. It is not the wish of the Executive Council to have us reflect on our history, so you were spot on, Brother Yusuf. The BWU is looking at this 75th conference in a different way. Yes, I think that by now that barring the notorious disparagers, some of which we hear every day on the call-in programs, those of you who listen to them, and the other naysayers, Barbadians at all levels have a significant appreciation of and respect for the contribution made by the trade union movement and this union over the years. A contribution which allows us all, by no small token, to celebrate the pride of nationhood. Instead, the Executive Council would have us regard this conference as one in which we can reap the benefits of what is referred to as a philosophy of contemplative learning, where outcomes are derived from merging experiential learning with careful introspection. So as we look inwardly and draw on the experience gained over 75 years, we approach the exercise with our objective of improving our service to our membership and improving our contribution to Barbados. So our theme, clear focus, renewed drive. We thank our Brother Yusuf for the challenge that was thrown out to us this morning and very timely reminders as we embark on this strategic renewal progress that we are not in this alone. Where we are at this point in our history is not something that is typical only of the Barbados Workers Union. The challenges that we face as we are forced to examine our structures, as we are forced to empower our shop stewards more as we are forced to consider all the challenges surrounding women in leadership and in our leadership structures, not only at the secretariat level, but also at the shop floor level, as we are forced to contemplate how our staff fit within that future. We are happy to know that we are not alone. So it is with some regret, I think it will be timely to mention it here, that in the past couple days, we have observed a number of pitiful attempts to taint the plans that we have for this conference, to taint our moments of introspection as a union family by one media house. And so yes, you may have heard that in Barbados, today the BWU has sent a signal to that media house that it was not welcome at our opening conference. We felt that it was irresponsible journalism aimed at benefiting from deceit and sensationalism ahead of this important conference for the BWU. It was unfortunate that an imposter union would be the source of the information. I use imposter quite deliberately because the word unity underpins the work of a union. And when it is included in the name of the union, it makes it all the more important to be recognized that attempts cannot be made to undermine another organization that is set on the same course as that union. All unions, whether you're the Barbados Workers Union, the National Union of Public Workers, the BSTU, the BUT, SETUSAB, all unions should have in mind the same objective. And that focus should be a focus not only of lifting our membership, growing our membership, but growing our membership in order that we can serve not only them, but this country better in the way that we have, in the way that has led to our independence, and in the way that will lead to our sustainability. So I say imposter. And then, when the media house could call this union and deliberately try to twist and turn the story to make it into a story, it seems that it's not only that other union that was desperate for membership, 13, I hear, but it seems that media house might be desperate for readers. But if you want a good message, a positive message to deliver in your radio programs, your newspapers, I think here is the place that you needed to be this morning and not on the outside of this house. So I'm sorry for that being so. So you've heard that the context of renewal for the BWU is not one that is foreign to many of our brothers and sisters throughout the region and throughout the world. The BWU is attempting to turn back the tide in many respects, where in Barbados there's evidence of growing poverty and inequality. The BWU is recognizing the need to tackle those elements of injustice that compel people to anger, to desperation, not only of the kind I mentioned just now, to resentment and to confrontation. But to achieve this, we cannot walk alone. This conference will be debating 5 resolutions, 3 of which I will draw to your attention at this point. The first is a resolution on peace. We have signaled our concern that frustration, desperation, and a number of unwarranted tensions are exacerbating crime and violence in our society. We also observe on the international scene how this is playing out in the confrontations between policemen and citizens of that country. We often hear as well that when countries like the US sneeze, we catch the cold. So we would not want to see that phenomenon creeping into Barbados. And so our resolution on peace is really a call for us all to do all that is in our power to make for a better climate of social justice and to reduce these occurrences. We'll be debating a second resolution for trade union recognition. And so, yes, we are happy to hear about the amendments being made to the Holidays with Pay Act, the Employment Rights Act, the amendments being proposed, the sexual harassment legislation, anti-discrimination in the workplace. And yes, we had in recent years too our Employment Rights Act. But let's get one thing straight. If we do not shore up, firm up the Trade Union Act, all these other efforts will go in vain. So it's kind of regrettable in some way that the Trade Union Act will be looked at after all these other things, because that is fundamental to all other rights for workers. But we believe that although the process of legislation is one that is recognized, that takes some time, it doesn't always have to be that way where there's genuine commitment to advance the process. And so, our resolution on trade union recognition, we think, is one that is timely, and we take comfort in the fact that the Ministry of Labor is on the same page in many respects. In 2015, workers and their unions shouldn't have to be fighting for the right to collective bargaining when we had already satisfied the requirements for recognition. In 2016, this union shouldn't have to be threatened by employers and their representatives who achieve that status only by the blood, sweat, and tears of workers themselves, that we can silence you if you don't maintain 30% membership. Our third resolution calls for agency legislation. Brother Yusuf, unlike your Canadian context, we don't have an arrangement where you go to the Labor Board, and once the Labor Relations Board gives the union accredited status, then all members of the bargaining unit must become members of the union. That closed shop arrangement, it would be beautiful. But we don't have it. And we're not asking for it in that resolution on agency. What we are recognizing is that, and this is not an attempt to disturb democracy in any way, but we have had a situation over the years in which there have been too many free riders, and I make no apology. We have had a situation over the years where on the sacrifice of a few, others continue to prosper, not given any interest, I won't use Hassan's language, but not given a single thing about those who continue to sacrifice, but who continue to benefit and who continue at times to tear down whenever the moment arises. So this conference is throwing out a challenge to those who can make the legislation happen, not only to enhance the Trade Union Act and to make sure we concretize trade union recognition so that we don't have to be out in those little stupid fires in this day and age. But we are saying that as it relates to, what's that? Exactly. We are saying as it relates to the strengthening the trade union movement as well, another good gesture would be to make sure that we approve that call for agency legislation. We're not asking for the juice. If you don't want to give us the $26, give it to the Cancer Society or the Diabetes Association. But give it, because if we're going to benefit, sacrifice must be carried by all. Right, Prime Minister? So I just want to recognize the presence of our Prime Minister, of course, and the distinguished members of Parliament, representatives of both political parties, the hopefuls, my brother and school colleague, I see here as well, Brother Strawn. We share the same WAMBI and many classes together at that other institution of note. We will remember that the BWU was born out of the Barbados Progressive League as an economic section which was later registered as the Barbados Workers Union. How can we forget that over the years we appear to be more strongly affiliated to the Democratic Labour Party, as we had many senior members of staff serving as members of Parliament on the DLP ticket. And while we record our tremendous appreciation for the time that you all have taken out to celebrate with us here this morning, it will mean so much more to us if we can see the demonstration of your affinity to the BWU, not only in these good times, but we would like to feel your kinship as demonstrated in the commitment you make and that you keep to the people that elect you. And I think that's important to say because we are swiftly approaching the season of promises. And the Barbados Workers Union will not allow its membership to be beguiled. We believe that, yes, manifestos are good and commitments are good, but it's more important to make sure we live by the commitments that we make, and however things turn, we commit to our membership, we commit to Barbados that we are going to hold you accountable. So I just want to recognize those others who have contributed into this morning's program. We want to keep it tight. We are a bit over time already because we have a lot of work to do as we debate our resolutions today and discuss our report, because on day 2, next Saturday, business section only, our members will be helping us hopefully define some of the challenges that perhaps we have not contemplated as an executive council and staff of the BWU, and helping us to fill in the blanks in many ways to a number of questions that we will have, and help us to define the way forward for this organization, not only over another 75 days, but also only over another 75 years. But we want to express our sincere appreciation to you, Minister, for taking the time out as usual to come and celebrate these different milestones with us. We thank you for your comments. We thank you for your stated commitment, and you've already heard that we are going to be on you to follow through, and especially within the next 16 months, not knowing how things could turn. Brother Baez, We want to thank you for taking the time out with us and for seeing the Barbados Workers Union as being so important and critical in the work that the region of the Americas has to do and that the region of the Caribbean has to do in particular, and for bringing special greetings and reminding the comrades here, as both you and Brother Hassan have done, that the Barbados Workers Union is not only strong because it's the largest union in Barbados, but because its influence extends throughout the region and will continue to do so internationally. We want to thank, of course, our chaplain for setting the tone for what we anticipate will be a very productive and exciting 2 days. We regret sincerely that you could not be entertained by our national monarch, a female. It would have been important. And Brother Hassan, you mentioned something. You mentioned that when you look at the structure of the Canadian Labour Congress and its formation, and you look at the pictures and so on, you don't see a lot of females represented, but you're seeing that shift now. Does anybody notice anything about our head table? We're pleased this morning that at this significant milestone, we can have our conference opened by the first female Minister of Labor, who was introduced by the first female President of the Barbados Workers Union. Our feature speaker was introduced by one of four Deputy General Secretaries of the Barbados Workers Union, 3 of whom are. And then this conference can be brought to a close, this opening part of the conference can be brought to a close by the first. Of course, I will want to take time out to thank those who set the atmosphere by making it look a whole lot fresher and beautiful as we came in. Those members of staff who didn't sleep last night as they tried to make sure that everything was in order for what we recognize would be a fairly big one for us. We want to thank all those, therefore, who have worked and who will continue to work to ensure that this conference is a success and that we recognize the objectives that we have set for ourselves. To the media, we look forward to reading and listening to your very positive stories of our events here today, and we look forward to continually welcoming you into our fold, knowing that you will represent us well in your statements. You continue to practice responsible journalism. To all of you, I wish you a very pleasant day. God's blessings to those who will stay with us. There is a break provided by the Gender Committee, but that should not, a paid one, they have asked me to indicate, that should not prevent you from joining us back here at 12 for a prompt start to our business session. Well, I'm being told 11:45 because if I say 12, I know that persons will be trickling in. But we have tried to set a different mood in here that when we say 9, it is 9, and I know we've been falling back on that, but we want to make sure that we can come back. It is now 25, that clock is right? It's 25 minutes after 11, so let's say 11:45 to give our distinguished guests enough time to leave us and then for us to get into our business session. Before you go, am I forgetting anybody? If I have everybody go with God. Have a beautiful day.